Are you good?
We are good.
We are good. I will call our March 30th meeting of the Richland County Executive and Finance Committee to order. Roll call, please. Clerk Kalish.
Carroll.
Here.
Schoonover.
Here.
Kramer.
Here.
Manning.
Here.
Hurt.
Here.
Frank.
Here.
Severson.
Present.
Williamson.
Here.
And Cooey.
Here.
All 9 are present.
I assume we are in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the meeting is properly noticed.
All right, thank you. Looking for agenda approval, we will be changing items 8 and 9, just flip-flopping them. One should be coming after the other, so 8 and 9 will just be flip-flop. Otherwise, 14-point agenda as posted. Motion by Supervisor Manning, seconded by Supervisor Kramer. All those in favor of approving the agenda with the flip-flop of 8 and 9, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We have an agenda approved. Minutes from our March 10th meeting are in the packet. Has anybody seen anything that was not correct or needs a change? Hearing, seeing no request, I will approve the minutes as posted from the March 10th meeting in the packet. Public comment reminder, I have quite a few forms. Mr. Turk, Chairman of the County Board, will be my timer. Just remember you have 3 minutes. We will take them in order as they were coming in. So we have Sharon Schmitz as our first person. Sharon, go ahead.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. I attended the most recent unofficial ambulance meeting on Tuesday, March 24th. There were many municipalities represented, which included 4 to 5 county board members, Richland Center City Administrator, and our Chief of Fire. Good discussion transpired. Near the end of the meeting, Richland Center City Administrator suggested one possible solution. To paraphrase, the county should be involved in our EMT service as they are the only entity that has a levy vehicle that would help our EMS service. And it was unanimous among the 14 or 15 people that were in attendance that night. My property taxes increased by $1,500 this year. However, if I were asked to pay a little more to assure me that we had a local service, I would gladly find the funds. On a side note, I did a little research on an outside service which covers Viroqua, and I was told by the sheriff himself that many times outlying volunteer service were dispatched to cover the calls. I find this troublesome. Please bring the right decision to the county board for a positive vote, which I believe represents our municipalities and all Richland County residents' desire to keep our local EMTs service in Richland Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. The next one I have is Michael Hubert. Is this correct, your address? It's Larry?
Yes.
Yep, from Bangor.
Yes. Board Chair, members of the board, good evening. My name is Michael Hubert. The Richland Center, or the Richland County EMS takes great pride in the care and service they provide to its residents, family, friends, neighbors, and visitors. The ambulance service here isn't just a fleet of vehicles. It's staffed by your people who know these back roads, these farms, and these families residing here. When neighbors call 911, they aren't getting a stranger from 2 counties away. They are getting someone who knows exactly where their driveway is and what their medical history looks like. That familiarity saves seconds, and seconds save lives. Public safety is a 3-legged stool: police, fire, and EMS. We don't ask the Sheriff's Department to break even before we fund a patrol car. Same token, we don't ask the fire department to turn profit before we buy a fire truck. EMS is actually the only part of public safety that generates revenue to offset its own costs. It is unrealistic and unfair to penalize them for being almost self-sufficient when we fully subsidize the other 2 legs of the stool. EMS is an essential public utility, just like clean water and safe roads. By funding the hometown Richland County EMS, they will maintain control of the quality, passion, and pride in serving the residents and visitors of Richland County. If the service is allowed to wither away, you become beholden to monopolized corporations. These entities don't care about Richland County. Those same funding shortages you've discussed over and over for the past several months, you will still be paying for those in a different way. Your best deal or bargain is investing in the people and the service Barb, her team, and previous leaders and members have already built. They're here now. If you sell these folks out to a monopolizing third party, They are not going to be the ones caring for your citizens. If they were interested in working for a large corporation, they would already be there. You sell them out now, they'll move on to another community that supports them, and they'll provide care with passion to those residents, just like they're here doing today. High-quality local EMS prevents longer hospital stays and better outcomes for citizens of Richland County. A healthy community is productive, tax-paying community. A healthy community is a productive tax-paying community. Funding them now is preventative maintenance for your county budget. When the residents and visitors of Richland County are at their most vulnerable, they look to Richland County EMS to ensure help is coming. I am asking the board to continue its legacy of pride in this community by providing stable and reliable funding this ambulance service needs. Let's treat EMS with the same financial respect that is afforded to the police and fire departments. These fine folks know the best. Show them you value that. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Marilyn Miller from Lone Rock, correct? Marilyn?
Mary Lou.
Mary Lou. Mary. Got it, go ahead.
I just moved to Lone Rock this week. I have lived in this town and in this county my entire life. My family has been served in many ways by the ambulance service, myself included. 8 years ago, I had a heart attack. If a certain EMT had not been a responder that night, I would not be here. I am here because he was, because he knew my family and he knew my family's history. He knew that my father had died of a massive heart attack at 49. And when he asked me how old I was, and I told him I was only 50, he insisted to his fellow EMTs that a 12-lead EKG was performed. I was told by the emergency room doctor and my cardiologist when I arrived at UW-Madison that if that 12-lead EKG had not been performed, they would not have found my heart attack, because my heart attack was a widowmaker on the back side of the left side of the heart, which is not common for a female. I have waited on so many of the EMTs and firefighters and police officers of this county and town over the 30 years that I have worked at Walmart. I know them, they have become friends, but I also know that if I call, they're there when I need them. And they support me. Barb has personally, more than once, thanks to allergic reactions, had to take me out of a bathroom when I could not control anything that was happening to me and get me to the ER. And even though she was the only female, she made sure that I felt safe. When I was transported to Madison by Baraboo with my heart attack, I was left alone in the back of the ambulance with zero contact with the two paramedics. They never even talked to me the entire time. For all they knew, I could have died in that ambulance on the way to Madison, and they never would have known. When I have ridden in an ambulance with Richland County, I have never, not once, been left alone.
Thank you. Up next, I have Caitlin Sini from Lone Rock as well.
Hello.
Caitlin.
My name is Caitlin. I go by Katie. I work closely with some of the most vulnerable individuals in our community. I am here today because I have some serious concerns about the proposal to replace our local EMS services with an out-of-town provider. I want to start with a simple question. Why are we not using our local EMS? Why is this even a decision we're trying to make? We already have trained, dedicated professionals right here, sitting at this table. People who know our roads, our residents, and our needs. They are the same individuals who showed up during COVID, during shutdowns, during some of the hardest moments our community has ever faced. They didn't leave and they stayed, and they're still here. They're on the board, on here, they're at the table here. So why are we considering this? Why? Another concern I have is response time, as many of us have. Many of us are concerned that this could be taking 20 minutes or more. That's the conversations that are on the town. Because I can tell you from my work, many of the people cannot survive this wait time. And I have to ask, why do we not hear from our local EMS staff? Is there a fear of retaliation? Why has none of them come out? Has there been, besides today, an opportunity to hear from our EMS? Their voices matter, and they are the ones doing the work every day. None of us are. I also need clarity, not just for myself, but for families that I support. When someone calls 911, who is coming? Is it going to be my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, or is it going to be somebody from out of town who doesn't even know where your road is, who has to use GPS to get to your house? Every person in this room has been impacted by an EMS in some way, shape, or form. This is not a budget decision. This is a decision about safety, trust, and the kind of community we want to be a part of for Richland Center. I urge you to consider this direction, to fully explore using the support for our local EMS, and to ensure that the voices of our EMS professionals and the people they serve are truly heard before any of the final decisions. Thank you.
Up next, I believe it's Andrea Rayner. Andrea?
That's correct. My name is Andrea Rayner, and I'm a former dispatcher from the Florida Highway Patrol. I was here at one of the other meetings also. I'm concerned about the EMS being put to other places, meaning outside coming in. They don't know the area. There are many times I listen to my scanner 24/7 because I'm medically disabled. But I listen to it and I pray for them while they're going to their calls. There are times when our local Richland EMS is busy and Lone Rock's busy, and they have to pull people from Reedsburg to come and fill in. Well, in that time, someone's life is on the line. It might not be yours, but it's someone's life. And when you're making these decisions, you're putting lives on the line. It's not just an ambulance. No, they're taking your loved ones to the hospital or wherever they need to go. And they need to be heard. They need to know where they're going. The GPS is not always accurate. They ask for directions from the dispatchers of the sheriff's department sometimes because of the inaccuracy. So don't rely on outside. Whatever it takes, keep it local, where people will know people who know people, and the help will be there because they have a vested interest in your well-being. And if I have to pay more in taxes, which I think the taxes here are ridiculous, they're double what I paid in Florida, literally, for a much less area. But if I have to pay more, I'll pay more because I want to know that the community is getting the service that they need versus what you're recommending. Thank you.
Barbara, you are next. Barb Scott.
Hi. I would like to speak to item 7B as it relates directly to 8 and 9 on the agenda. The company that conducted the survey for Richland County also has just conducted a survey for Mazamini. They took the time to interview multiple employees from Mays Maney. They spent days in the station, and they worked directly with the chief while evaluating personnel, operations, and equipment. It was by all accounts a thorough and inclusive review. In contrast, for Richland County's study, there was absolutely no contact between Mr. Shaler, the personnel, and the leadership of Richland County Ambulance. At no point were staff interviewed, nor was there an opportunity for the director to provide input or context. Additionally, as of today, and I wrote this before and I know the study is out there today, I hadn't seen the results of the study until they came online for this meeting. To be clear, that's concerning. The absence of engagement with the very people who operate the service every day leaves a significant gap in the understanding the realities of our system. Equally concerning, while our internal team was not included in the process, outside services were allowed to present to the other municipalities and to the board. This created a perception, whether intended or not, that the voices of those currently serving our community were not valued or prioritized. The impact of this is real. It left our staff feeling overlooked, uncertain about their future, and the uncertainty brings stress. Stress they carry with them every day while they continue to respond to calls, care for patients, and serve the community with professionalism and dedication. This is the part that I really want to emphasize the most. No matter what those challenges were, our team has not faltered. They continue to show up, to provide excellent care, and to represent this community and county with pride. Their commitment to their patients and to each other remains strong, even in the face of the uncertainty. I want to take a moment to commend this group of professionals. Their resilience, their dedication, and their unwavering service to community do not go unnoticed. Excuse me. I'm proud to stand with them and to be a part of this team.
Next up is Chris Younger from Richland Center.
I am part of the Richland Center EMS, but tonight I'm speaking as a citizen of the community. I'm just curious if anybody here on the board, Trish, you included, knows what third-degree heart block is. Anybody? Perfect. Trish?
We are not supposed to engage during public comment.
Okay. Well, that's what I have. I have third-degree heart block. I have a pacemaker. My wife and my son are severe asthmatic. My son has also got allergies to where he's anaphylaxis. He's an EpiPen. These guys, before I joined this group, saved my life twice. We're at my house within minutes. Minutes. If something were to happen to me, or my wife, or my son, and we didn't have EMS in our county, I'm supposed to wait, what, an hour? Hour and a half for Tri-State or Gunderson to come from Madison or La Crosse? Why? Why? When we have a dedicated crew right here. What sense does that make? If anybody here on this board can logically and common sensely tell me what sense does that make, please explain it to me. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Chris. Anyone else within the building here or online for public comment? Rod?
Well, I hadn't originally planned to talk, but as a member of the county board, I'd like people to know Number one, I'm aware of what goes on in Vernon County. Neither Vernon County nor the city of Iroquois has an ambulance service, so they contract with Tri-State out of La Crosse. I hear the scanner, and they're constantly calling Viola and Lafarge for mutual aid because they don't have a crew. Having said that, we haven't used the ambulance service since Saturday night at our house. And that's pretty damn important to me. And I'll be voting to keep our ambulance service.
Anyone else within the building? Yes, sir.
I'll speak briefly. We live near the hospital. And
State your name, please.
Robert Bellman.
Got it, Derek?
I got it.
Okay.
Okay, we live near the hospital. And if you realize how many times ambulances come in, and med flight comes in, and how many lives are being saved by that, I think we can all think of people we know who have been saved by the ambulance. I think if you, almost everybody here can think of that. Let's figure out this financial stuff. I think I heard you were a few $1,000s behind and so forth, but we've got several months now to get this figured out. I'm really hopeful we can. I really hope the ambulance service will stay with the dedicated people we have now. We've been through a lot. I sat down in the basement here many years ago now, actually, when we were trying to get all our small groups together. Some of you guys may have been there and remember that. And we've gone through a lot to keep this. I don't want to see us lose it right now. I think it's a very important thing. It might be one of the most important services we have when we think about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Darren? You got Darren here?
I don't yet, I can only raise it fast, hang on 1 second. Darren, yes, got it.
Go ahead, Darren.
I got it.
All right. I'm going to keep it brief, but one of the things I just wanted to put out there as you ponder what you're faced with tonight is third-party service and outside service versus who you have currently right now serving. And I understand that there's potentially a proposal or a thought process of doing a countywide levy. Part of that money would go to this third-party service. The remaining dollars will be distributed to the other ambulance services that are in the county. This is my understanding of one of those options. If the decision is made and you choose as a board, which is your prerogative, you're the elected officials for the county and it's run by you. If you choose a third-party service, in my own opinion, you're subjugating your ability to control the vision, the policy, and what you want to have in terms of an EMS service in Richland County. That third-party entity is going to become the one that provides that service to you. And they might give you great care. I'm not going to debate that. But what they're going to be up against is the same thing that they're up against today. 73% of your payer mix is Medicare, Medicaid. That will not change for a third-party service. They're still going to have the same billing challenges. They're still going to have the same staffing challenges. The two things that really are the biggest hurdle for EMS today is not dedicated people. It's finding enough of them to do it in a world and an economy where you can't just give all of your time like we once did, like many people did for the service. Those challenges remain, but you're taking away your voice as elected officials to have input on those challenges. Third-party service is going to provide it and you're going to just pay them. You won't have a seat at the table. And I know things have changed since I left, and I've got an instructor that I had went to a few classes, and some of the EMTs in the room might remember this saying, but he had a saying that nobody likes change but a wet baby. And that's true, right? Nobody likes change but a wet baby. But when you're changing one delivery method, one mode, being a municipal or government-run ambulance service for a third party, I guess I have some concerns with that. And I'm going to just close and say in 2014, the ambulance service was kind of in a rough spot. There were many dedicated providers that kept that thing going. Two of them are in this room today that
that gave all they had to keep it going. We were able to solve that problem by having open dialogue and conversations and cooperation amongst all the vested parties, townships, villages, city, and county. I would just ask that whatever you do, and I don't know all the behind the scenes, and I'm not accusing of anybody that's not happening, but that vehicle drove problem solving, it drove conversations, it drove transparency, and it drove people to help solve the problem. So I hope that you just take into consideration those two avenues, third party versus municipal. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Darren. Go ahead. State your name so Derek can get it in the record.
Judy Shire, you know, 34 years as a volunteer with Richland County Ambulance Service. I can tell you all the time, I was on 2 crews at one time, 24 hours a day. Yes, I worked outside of that, but my schedule was arranged so that I could cover that call. I missed a lot of family get-togethers, a lot of birthday parties, Christmas, New Year's, Easter, you name it, I missed it, all right? But I believe in this service. I haven't used this service for a while. The last time my husband had a stroke, I did not use the service. I live in Allison Park. I got him up the stairs out of our family room. Derek knows what it's like. He's been there. In the truck, called the hospital on the way up there. Very familiar with my husband. They called MedFlight, and by the time I got him to the hospital, they were there. They are important, but not having to get up and get a crew and get in the ambulance and drive 5 miles out to my house. When I lived in the country, I done that too. I was 5 miles from the hospital when he had his first heart attack, okay? It makes a difference in time. We got people now that stay at the station. I never had that luxury. Always came from home. And when that one weekend came up, when a certain person walked the director out of that service and said that they were all right when there was a basic EMT and a ride-along studying to be a first responder and said, oh, you got 2 of them, you should be all right. Not even knowing that that ambulance cannot leave the garage without an advanced EMT in it. And there's got to be 2. One can be a basic, but one's got to be an advanced. That's the way the license reads, that's the way the insurance reads. Keep our people local. Most of these people in here know me because I spent 12 years on city council. I've been through these issues before. And you guys have done something wrong because we had money. We functioned that ambulance and we had money and we bought the equipment. And now all of a sudden we're driving ambulances that should have been in the junkyard years ago. Get your head on your shoulders and start thinking about your fellow citizens and how much their health reminds them. Because when that weekend happened, I have a daughter that's had open heart surgery, a son-in-law that's had open heart surgery. I told him, I called him up and said, you need an ambulance, I'll get you El Camino out, and I guarantee you we'll get you done. Because I'll run my red light in my El Camino, and somebody's going to stop me. That's how desperate I feel about this ambulance service staying here locally. And I know I rode with new people at first that did not know the county. They did not know where they were going. You have to think about that too. Every second counts. Like it or not, that's my opinion. You don't have to like it, but you guys have got it. I think there's other people that like it.
My name is Dave Terpstra. I work part-time with the service. I can only echo what I've heard so much of other people say about the dedication, the knowledge of the people that work on this service. Richland County, Richland Center is incredibly lucky to have the people that they have working for them right now. I currently work with 4 services. I've actually been to Richland Center with Reedsburg Ambulance Service on calls. I'm working with Lone Rock right now, Richland Center, and Spring Green. There's a shortage everywhere. So there is a turning point happening here. And somebody spoke to it earlier that in the 80s, I was a paramedic. I went and did a bunch of other things for 40 years. I'm back. in the services because of the dire shortage of practitioners pre-hospital. So it would be a huge mistake to lose what you have, in my opinion. And, you know, it's your prerogative, as somebody else said, as the board. But you have a gem here, and I hope that you don't throw it away. There is a group of people that have revitalized the Richland County Ambulance Association, which is a 501c3 organization, and they are willing to put the time and the effort in to begin raising funds to help offset costs and to help bring the services in the county together and work more cooperatively so that we can actually streamline some things. You know, issues like cross-credentialing between the services and getting everybody on the same page in the service area would be a huge benefit. And so I hope that you'll take a deep dive and really consider this whole issue and look at it closely before you make any decisions. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Let me see if there's anybody online, and then I'll step back in. Anybody online that would like to comment?
Mr. Chairman.
You can. I'm just checking online, then I'll grab you. I hear none. Go ahead, state your name to Derek, please. You have 3 minutes, sir.
I'm the other Darren, and Darren Mampus from Viola. I represent the Kickland Valley Rescue Squad. I believe we mailed out letters from our ambulance squad to the county board members stating and supporting the Richland County ambulance 110%. And stated some facts about reaching out to a third party, so I brought a few. Since August 27th of 2025 to January 27th of 2026, 6-month period, our ambulance served for Oakland 24 times. It was 21 times for Lafarge in the 6-month period, and Reedstown had 8 calls for mutual aid to back up Tri-State Ambulance Service. Our ambulance squads have always worked together. We come over and we worked the Star Spangled together. In return, the Richland County Ambulance on our day of Viola Horse and Culture would come and help watch for a few hours just to give our EMTs a break. Everybody that gives their time is giving up a lot. Like Judy said, there's family times in the middle of the night when you just soon stay in bed to get up and you go. When you have something local that's working this good, I don't even know why it's considered. I'm also the Village of Viola president, wondering how you're going to fund this. If our taxpayers on that side, you know, what needs to be done to make this correct. Healthcare is a crucial part. Nothing against fire, you can always rebuild a house, but you can't rebuild a life. I feel it's very important that the ambulance stays where it's at and is funded. What would we do without it? I can just tell you from past experience, third parties do not work in the ambulance service. Thank you.
Anyone else before we move on? Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Kevin Nolan, County Board Supervisor, District 10. I apologize, I did not read the study yet, the results. But as a former heart patient myself, widowmaker, fortunately I have not done EMS since 2005. But as I stand here today, I know that if I need help, they're going to be there for me. And that brings me a lot of comfort. I also have a daughter here, son-in-law, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And it's good for me to know that we have the EMS service based here, serving here. Like everyone has said, they know the community, they know the streets, the county roads, etc. Shipping it out to a third party is not a good idea. Thank you.
Let's go. Okay, Somebody online, can you state your name? Can you hear us okay?
You're muted. Darlene, you're muted.
We can't hear you, so there we go.
Okay, do you have it? Hi, my name is Darlene Waldsmith-Teglia-Petra. I'm a resident of Richland County, and I'm also a business owner that works with people who utilize the service every day of their lives. And I have to say, this week alone, I can't even tell you how many people have been touched by EMS. The loving and the caring that these people have, the localness of it. People feel comfortable with the service. The service is beyond needed in our county, and I can't see it being farmed out to a third party where the third party would not prioritize our citizens here in the county. I think that it's something that we need to look at how to keep it at the level, if not even improve the level of service they're able to provide. But that's something that takes a lot of input. I know we have a short period of time. However, I, as a person who works with people who use this service on a daily basis, everyone that I work with does not want to see it going to a third party, because then it becomes the third party's, the way that they run their business versus the priority of it being in our county and us being able to have that hands-on feeling of what we need. And that's all I need to say today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else before we move on to the next agenda item? Thank you all for being respectful for your comments. We will all take it into consideration. All right, we are moving on to reports. Item 7. 7A, County Administrator.
All right, so just a few things. The County Facilities Committee has heard from all the departments about their needs, and the next 2 meetings that we are having will be to complete a plan, really a long-range plan for our facility needs. The request for interest for the campus property was shared just over a week ago to the community. Responses are due on April 13th, and they will be reviewed by the Campus Redevelopment Committee on April 30th. We are having meetings with department heads on the 7th of April to start to review their requested capital improvement requests for 2027. We have also started to review a third of the job descriptions with DDA. As you'll recall, that was one of the things when we did the comp and class study, was to every year review a third of the job description so that we can ensure that they remain accurate and that we remain competitive. One of the most exciting things for me today was that I signed the conditional acceptance of the system from GenCom for our radio tower. So as of April 1st, it will be owned by us. This has been a very, very long process. There's lots of people that need to be thanked from the county for all the work that they did on that. I know Barb Scott, Jason Marshall, John Cooey have all done a lot for that, either in their previous roles or in their current roles. Tammy Newberry does a lot with the budget, so we do appreciate all the work that has been put into that. One of the last steps will be in April, they'll do the final testing, and then it'll officially be our system. So that's very exciting. And that's what I have for updates.
Questions from the committee for the administrator? Seeing none, let's move on to 7B, EMS study presentation.
So a few months ago, we engaged with Strategic Management and Consulting to do a study. The study was not of our current service, but what is the best thing for the county for the provision of ambulance service moving forward. So I have Dana online, and he will give us an overview of the report.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. We did have a fairly in-depth, deep dive discussion last week with a number of the municipalities that have service being provided to them from Richland County Ambulance Service, and went into more specifics than we probably will go tonight. That said, I'm happy to entertain questions throughout this discussion or afterwards if people do have questions. Pending the approval of the committee, I'm happy to answer those questions. Would you like me to share on my screen or use your screen as we go through? I think I should be able to.
Yeah.
Did that come through?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. So as we go through here, I will just hit some highlights that I think will be important for your considerations as we go through these discussions. In the executive summary, I really just bring up a lot of the items that's affecting EMS across the nation, and specifically here in Wisconsin. They weren't necessarily reflective of the ambulance service, but just in general, what's happening with EMS. It also goes through the state laws that discuss the fact that towns are under the purview that they must provide ambulance service, whereas cities, villages, and counties, they may. It's permissible that they provide ambulance service. I also include highlights from a study that was performed by the Wisconsin Office of Rural Health, and it's very telling on the direction that EMS is going, and the full report was also linked there. And the goal is to say we all need to be proactive in understanding that certain things are happening in EMS. They've been huge changes for the past number of years, and we need to be we need to be educated on what those changes are, and then be aware and make some educated decisions on the directions we're going to go. As we were talking about the direction that this study would take, you also happen to be concurrently in a time frame when the Wisconsin State Legislature has actually dedicated some funding to be available through the Innovation Grant. Some of you may be very familiar with that. This may be something new to others. But even though it wasn't 100% of the direction we looked at, I did include quite a bit of information for everybody to be able to read through and understand what the Innovation Grant was about. Because, as even was mentioned this evening, we need additional funding for EMS. That always seems to be a surprise that EMS comes up short-handed, and we tend to fund other types of services very readily. EMS is one of those that we don't always readily fund. So this was an option to consider as an innovation grant. The deadline for it is tomorrow, and there would not be enough time to apply for this first round. However, our understanding is not many people applied for the pool of $300 million. There's quite a bit of funds that are available. In fact, I just checked before starting this meeting, and there were only 41 municipal entities that even applied so far. So there'll probably be a couple more that apply by tomorrow's deadline, but not many more. Certainly not to expend that $300 million. The good news is then that most likely the Department of Revenue is going to create a second round for the grant. And as we're talking about all the options that are available, it certainly would be something that all the municipalities within Richland County can consider in working together. And whatever the option is that's chosen to move forward, hopefully you'll be able to make those changes in which you're eligible to receive some of that funding. And I'll go through a couple examples to let you know the minimum amounts that you would be entitled to have as part of that innovation grant. So the innovation grant is several pages long, lots and lots and lots of information on what needs to be done. But what I'd like to concentrate on is the amount that would be beneficial to all the municipalities within the county. So we actually use this as a basis. This is what minimally the towns that are being serviced by Richland County EMS contributed in 2025, and we use that as the base numbers. I think we can certainly enhance those numbers and be able to look at a slightly higher amount than what we have written out right now, as well as if you do consider working with all the municipalities within the county, that number will continue to rise as part of the grant award. So in the example that we have, we said all the municipalities that have participated in the current Richland County ambulance service, on behalf of how much they paid, when you added it all together, it was $150,000. The grant award then is 25% of that. So 25% of 150,000 would be $37,697. If you participated for all 5 years, that means that the total grant award would be $188,000. Now, as I said, that was just the municipalities associated with the current Richland County ambulance service. There are other municipalities in the county that, if you look at a different model, you could include additional funds for your grant award, and that number would increase in time. As well, because the Richland County EMS, it does have full-time staff, part-time staff, volunteers. There's a specific provision in the law that's associated with the innovation grant that says if you can document hours volunteered by EMS, and this also applies to volunteer fire departments as well, but for now we'll just talk about EMS, they are willing to give additional funding to offset those hours as part of this grant. And so we gave an example that if you could document 10,000 hours of volunteer service, the U.S. Bureau of Labor standard for an EMT in Richland County would be $17.88. So if you follow that formula and multiply it out times 10,000 hours, it also allows you to include benefits at 44%. Your base number now becomes $257,000. They understand, the Department of Revenue understands, you didn't actually pay that to your volunteers. It's saying that they volunteered that, and that's the equivalent amount of hours that you normally would have had to pay for their service. So we take that number, multiply by the 25%, and if you look at this next section, it says the initial base award was $37,000. You then do your extrapolated volunteer wages, you add another $64,000. Now, the potential annual grant award is $2,000 a year. And if you participate in all 5 years, then that's going to be over $500,000 that you would be eligible for. So this is just something to think about. Again, it's not going to be available after tomorrow's deadline for the first round. But we do anticipate that the second round will be available, and it would be a great opportunity for Richland County and all the municipalities in the county to consider. So again, lots of additional information for all the people in the county to be able to read through and to be able to hopefully make some informed decisions as they move on. The next section then, which is where we heard several comments tonight, was on the different options for EMS models. As we discussed the different options that were there, it really came down to 4 different models that would work. There are more models than that, but we did not feel that addressing the other models would be beneficial for the setup as it currently exists. So we just listed the 4 that would be most viable, most able to work. So we discussed the current response area within Richland County. And before we get to those 4 models, I do want to bring up one thing. And again, it's just to make sure everybody's on the same page. on the costs of EMS. I heard that a couple times this evening with the public comments. We probably don't understand the cost of EMS, and we assume that, oh, because there's volunteers, that it's free to run the service. Well, that's not true, right? You still have to pay for insurance, you still have to pay for fuel, you still have to pay for oil changes and tires and the buildings and just everything that's associated with the ambulance service. So I wanted to put something in here that helps people understand what I would say is the real cost of EMS. And in this, I did use paramedic ambulance service as the example. And the example basically says that for every ambulance that is staffed, it will cost $1 million a year to run that ambulance. Okay, so I'll say it again, $1 million to run a paramedic staffed ambulance, and that's with all full-time people. All full-time people. You have 2 people per day, 365 days a year. You multiply all that out, and you're going to end up with $1 million for cost. If you want 2 ambulances, it would be $2 million, and if you want 3 ambulances, it would be $3 million. But using the example of 1 paramedic ambulance is $1 million, if you divide that by the population of the county in Richland County, so 17,229, that means that it's going to be at a per capita rate $58.04. $58.04 for 1 paramedic ambulance to be stationed in the county. And if you wanted 2 ambulances at a minimum, that would double to $116.08. So hopefully that helps people understand it's expensive now. It costs money to run an ambulance service. You certainly can cut some of the costs if you do include part-timers with the full-time staff. You save some funds. If you include volunteers with the full-time staff, you're going to save on those costs. But this is just the worst-case scenario. If you had to have all full-time staff, this is what it would cost. I do give a comparison that I think is good to know about. When you look at public safety, this is an average across the state of Wisconsin. So yours might be slightly higher or slightly lower, but it's an average. When you compare that, let's say you want to have 2 ambulances in the county at $116, volunteer fire is $83 to $88 per capita. Career fire lands between $150 and $155, and career law enforcement is anywhere from $225 to $335. It's actually a little higher than that. And though it seems like a lot, I did hear a lot of people say they would gladly pay a little bit more to assure that there was EMS in the county. When you look at how much it costs for personal amenities, most people have internet, and it costs them between $35 and $100 a month. A month now, not a year. The cell phone that we use costs between $55 and $100 a month. And even garbage collection, right? We all have to have garbage collection is $155 to $550 annually. So again, when we compare the cost of full-time paramedic service at $116, it falls into what I would say is reasonable amount that we should consider spending to assure EMS within the county. So, as I said, there are several different ways that you can provide the ambulance service model. We included 4 of them. And we gave some pros and cons. I'll run through those quickly, and then we'll finish up here. The first option is the district now, so that would be the current municipalities could continue to work with Richland County Ambulance Service, and they could create a district ambulance if they wanted to be eligible for the innovation grant funding, and they would self-run it, right? It would be owned and operated by the district, and they would hire the staff, they would manage the staff, they'd work, that are working on the ambulance, they would own the equipment. And the pros and cons for that option are listed. That district could also then contract with a third-party entity, right? They could still be a district in which there's a board of oversight. They would basically just contract with an ambulance service, and that ambulance service would then be responsible for the daily operations of the service. Again, we listed the pros and cons associated with that. We also put in here, if you're going to have a district, you would need to have a board of oversight, and this goes through an example of how you would have that representation and how the voting would go on that. Those are the first two options. The second two options then are to look more at a county-wide approach, and those have two options as well. The first one is that the county would self-run the ambulance service. They would own the equipment, they would hire staff, they would pay staff, and it would be at the county level, and listed the pros and cons to that option. And then the last option that's listed is, again, county run, but it's through a contract for a third-party entity. So we listed the pros and cons for that. Now you can say, well, why would we consider a county-run service? And as was discussed, the option exists then for the county to be able to exceed the tax levy limit. Right now, all municipalities, not just the county, but cities, towns, villages, they all are obligated to follow the cap or the tax levy limit of 2% of CPI. The county is also obligated to follow that, except that there's very specific statute written that if they are managing a countywide ambulance service, and there's actually 3 options for them to manage that, they can then exceed the tax levy limit specifically for EMS-related items. And so that's probably when we're looking at funding issues and not having enough funds necessarily to always pay for EMS, this would be one of those options for the county to consider. It's certainly not mandatory that that happens, but it's just presenting all the options that are available. So those are the 4 options that were presented within the study. And again, there were quite a bit of information supporting the pros and the cons on those options. As we get into the option of do we do districts, do we do county run, if the decision is made that you want to maintain a district ambulance service where the district continues with the service, that they run and own it, or the county runs and owns it, then we also put in this section where it's a checklist in essence to make sure all these things are accomplished. And I don't want to run through them all. They're there for you guys to research and utilize, and again, it would be after the fact, but to go through to say, make sure you start with item 1, and then go to item 2, and item 3, and item 4, and it really just discusses all the different requirements for an ambulance service to maintain compliancy within the state of Wisconsin. So as we go through here, there's actually a total of 28 different recommended items for the self-run ambulance service to adhere to. And I would also say if the decision is made that you contract with a third-party entity, that make sure that they also run through this and that they have all these items of compliance listed. If you do decide to go with a third-party entity, the recommendation was also to put out an RFP, or what's called a request for proposal, because then you can list everything out to say, this is our expectation. We want you to have this many ambulances. We want the level of service to be this. Some places even put in an expectation on the response times and the such. So you can certainly write many, many different requirements into the RFP, and then you can see which of the ambulance services in the state respond back to that RFP, and then again you can make some informed decisions. As we approach the end of the report, we talked about additional goals and recommendations as far as evaluating the district, and we talk about recruitment. That's obviously a huge issue, no matter if you're a volunteer, if you're full-time career, all the services are struggling. So we talk about some recruitment issues, and we bring up some ideas on recruiting municipal employees, recruiting high school students, talking about additional local resources. We talk about staying up to date with the legislative initiatives and making sure the service director and the crews are aware of all the things that are occurring across the state. We even bring up some information about implementing either a community EMS, if you're at the EMT or advanced EMT level, or a community paramedic program within your county. That would be a wonderful way to have the ambulance service working with the county department. And we go through actually 2 pages of information related to that recommendation. The last section, section 3 then, has many other grants, right? One of the things we heard several times tonight was funding. So in addition to the innovation grant, in addition to the billing that comes in, these are some other grants that the ambulance service can take advantage of and can apply for. Some are only available once a year, some are only available a couple times a year, but basically you just have to keep watching and then apply for grants as you see fit through the different foundations and grant opportunities that are out there. So with that, we have some concluding statements for the county, and I am more than happy to answer any questions that the committee has, and we can proceed from there.
It's only going to be from the committee.
Okay.
Dana is online. Anybody from the committee that has a question for Dana?
I do, Dana. Thank you for being here tonight. I have a question for you. Your study with the 5840 and the 11680 per month, that is on just a per capita tax system?
I'm sorry, I could not hear the question too well.
When it comes to funding for the taxpayers, it's based on a per capita system that you use?
I presented the information in a per capita form, so that's because a lot of people can relate to that and say, okay, per capita is per person in the county. The county, the county especially, could actually choose to do equalized value, and if you did that, the number's still the same, whatever it is.
Of course.
You can use the equalized value.
And that's the per assessment, am I right on that? Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not a tax attorney.
Yes.
But if I have my facts right, per capita, absentee owner residents do not pay anything for the ambulance. Nonprofit entities don't pay anything on the ambulance, such as Schmidt-Woodland Hills, I believe, is a nonprofit. And any of the businesses don't pay any money towards the ambulance. Walmart.
Right.
So if you would include that in your per assessment system, again, the $1 million per ambulance is always going to be there.
Correct.
But if we go with a different type of billing or taxation, it's going to be quite a bit less than the $58.40 a month per tax.
Yeah, equalized value spreads that $1 million or $2 million if you go with 2 rigs across more than just the homeowners in the county. As you said, a lot of nonprofit entities and businesses, tax exempt businesses. So you're going to drop the overall cost for everyone else in the county by spreading it through an equalized value appropriation.
Thank you.
I believe what we were talking, if we go with the levy exemption, that's property taxes, which is the mechanism the county has to raise money is property taxes. So we would be applying it to all taxable property in the county, no matter how many people live there, no matter if it's a vacant property, business, whatever. If it's tax exempt, it's not taxed, so it would apply to that property. So just to clarify what funding mechanism we have available.
So Walmart would be paying on it?
Walmart pays property taxes.
There's just still the dark store theory that could be debated right now. So,
Questions for Dana from the committee? Mr. Carroll.
Actually, I had a lot of questions, but I guess the report was written with an assumption that I have a base level of knowledge of EMC, which I don't have, I'll admit it. I'm trying to understand the map on page 19, and there's big chunks of the county that are not done by Richland EMS. And I'm trying to understand, when we say county-wide, we're not county-wide, so I'm trying to understand how not just the taxing, but the interface with all these other services fits into this. Are they part of the decision process? Have they been talked to? And how does that, all of that affect our ability to either go for the innovation grant or how we do the levy? That's a lot of questions, but that's where I'm at right now. Just saw this report this week.
Dana, any comment back or your thoughts?
I'm happy to answer any of the questions, but I wasn't sure what that question was.
Did you have one specific question, Steve, or would you rather?
When we say countywide, what does that mean when we already have chunks of the county that are handled by other services?
Yep. So right now you have Richland County Ambulance Service that serves a portion of the county, and in the report, the towns are listed, as well as the city of Richland Center. So even though it says Richland County Ambulance Service, it does not indeed service the entire county. There are 5 other ambulance services that do that. So when you look at the options related to district, that would probably assume that you're going to maintain the same area or near the same area as what the current Richland County Ambulance Service is providing service for. If you're looking at a county-wide ambulance service, then the thought process would be for you to consider looking at the entire county, all the towns within that county. That does not necessarily mean that you have to take over everything or provide services there. There are several approaches that you can indeed provide the service. You can do it as a county if you wanted to have an ambulance going to all those areas. You can also sign a contract with existing ambulance services and say, we recognize you have this current area and we want you to continue responding there. And the benefit will be we're going to pull a tax levy and we're going to pay you a portion for those geographical areas that you respond to. So those are all options that you have to consider.
Does that help?
Sure. So which of the 4 options you mentioned would that be?
It would be the ones associated with the countywide ambulance service. So the countywide ambulance service would either be self-run, or you would own and maintain it and run it, or it could be county-run service that contracts with a third-party entity.
So on page 21, your option number 1 would be what I'm trying to describe.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Which page are you looking at?
Page 21.
Yes. Both of those options that are provided there would indeed be what you're just talking about.
All right, thank you.
Actually, Dana on page 21 talks about a district.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep. So
I mean,
we would be
yep,
looking
okay.
Bottom of page 22, top of page 23.
There you go. Yep. 23 is the county-run options for either the consolidation approach or the distributed approach.
That help?
Yeah.
Okay. Further questions from the committee for Dana? Mr. Bob Frank.
Thank you for the presentation. A couple of things, in looking at the innovation of grant, the volunteer, what's the definition of a volunteer? If they're full-time paid, those hours couldn't be considered because they're not volunteer, so it's going to be just those people that come to the service to help out more? Do you know what that is?
Well, yeah, it's, the DOR is pretty flexible on the definition, or their interpretation of it. They're not the ones who came up with it, it was the legislatures that did. So if you got no funds or payment, then you would be counted at, let's say I work an hour, at that you get paid back at that appropriated rate of the $17 per hour. If you then, let's pretend that you did get a stipend of like $10 an hour, it would be the difference between what your stipend was and what they're saying is allowed by the U.S. Bureau of Labor. Their whole goal in that was purposely set up by the legislators to be an exception to the rule in the innovation grant only for volunteer fire and volunteer EMS. And it was a way to be able to get additional funding to fire and EMS through this grant.
Okay, thank you. That difference does make, not to repeat a word, that does make a difference in the grant, obviously, because if they're getting paid 10 and we put in for 17, that really changes that number pretty quick. All right, so my next question then is a third-party contractor that oversees existing EMS services. Have you had any dealing with that, whereas the county would just be paying them to oversee an entire project? Do you have any contracts that you've seen with that in the state or familiar with that?
Yeah, there's many areas that will hire a third-party contractor. So your options are the town can run or own the ambulance service, a district could run or own the ambulance service, the county can, or you can put out an RFP where you get to bid back to say, here's what we can provide for you. We can provide 2 ambulances or 3 ambulances, and our overall costs are X, but we know we're going to be bringing in some funds from billing for our services. So once we count that all out, we believe we can provide 1 or 2 or 3 ambulances to your communities for this amount.
Okay, I guess my question was more to an outside entity working with the people that are already here. Have you seen contracts like that, or do you deal with, as you're in your consulting firm, is that something you've looked at?
We have not worked with any particular entity we have helped to develop RFPs for a client. We have not worked with the ambulance service to be able to reply back to them.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all I have right now.
And in their RFP, you could certainly say, we would like consideration to be given to current staff, where we'd like to assure that we have 15 staff members that would be given a higher priority for the hiring process than anybody else that they might be hiring to provide service to your area.
Okay, I guess I wasn't looking at replacing, I was looking at a management company that would oversee what we have, so the county itself isn't directly in that we would simply fund them with the tax incentive part of it, that we would then have some of that oversight with, because it's a contract, but yet they're working with what we have. That was kind of my vision.
No, the way this report is written would be you were actually contracting with an ambulance service, and the ambulance service would be have the oversight of the employees.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Supervisor Severson? Nope, you're good.
Well, I got stuff I want to say, but I think I can't speak for Supervisor Frank here, but what I interpreted his question to you, Mr. Steckler, was have you worked with a county in the state of Wisconsin that levies a, per se, tax for a ambulance service that then is third party, like your recommendation that you recommended here? We know, or I know that a township or has to provide that service, and there are several out there that those townships do contract with a third party. I interpreted Supervisor Franks as if, have you worked with the county? providing a third ambulance service? And if you have, what was that county? And if you haven't, then why would you recommend that model?
I have not personally worked with the county, to answer the first question. And the second question is, it's the benefit of the county being able to operate or be able to have a tax levy limit option where they can purposely levy a higher amount to provide ambulance service in their community. So one of the options is that it's a county that can do it through a third-party contracted service. It can also be a county where the county itself owns and operates the vehicles and hires the employees and pays them their wages.
I think you skirted around the issue and not really answering it because you've mentioned it 3 or 4 different times of what services models are out there. However, I'm curious to know, I did have the opportunity to read Bayfield County's report that you did that was done 2 years ago, copyrighted 2024, and you mentioned in there you gave 22 recommendations for that county to provide ambulance service, and here you've only given a short amount. That was 70 pages, this is 50. Why did you recommended on option 22 of their report that, I could actually read it here to maybe I could refresh your memory. So with that recommendation 22, you said Bayfield County will need to continue to work with transporting ambulance services to assure response coverage throughout the coverage. If the transporting ambulance services are doing well and or any district ambulance services that have been created, then the county can remain in a supportive role. However, if any of the ambulance services are continuing to struggle, the county will need to begin discussions on additional ways to support the countywide EMS system, including transitioning to a model of countywide EMS in which the county eventually acquires, owns, and operates all operational components of the system, as well as providing for staffing on transporting ambulances in that area. Your study is a little bit different than what I'm getting from you here. When we paid you that money, and then we could have just went to the Department of Revenue also on the thing and learned about that innovation grant without having to waste our money. But curious to see your opinion is.
Yeah, the Bayfield study was a very uniquely different study than what it was for Richland County. They have 9 transporting ambulance services within the county, and the county wanted to know what are the options to help either them sustain and maintain their service, or what would eventually happen to if they couldn't provide that service anymore and the county stepped in to provide that service. This is different because you have Richland County Ambulance is providing EMS in the middle of the county, and then you have other ambulance services that are coming in from outside the county into the county. So it's a very different geographical type of provision of EMS, and so the recommendations are going to be different from one county that has some different models of EMS versus your county.
We only have 2 ambulance services, I think, that are outside of our county that do come in. Well, actually now a third one since we gave up Yuba and let them go to Hillsborough, but all the rest of them are still in this county.
Oh, yeah.
He was saying that they're coming from another county into our county to service, and that's not true. So
Muscatine River.
yes, and now Hillsborough. But Casanova, Viola, and Lone Rock are all within Richland County.
Further comments from the committee? Are you done, Mr. Severson?
Yeah, I guess I was curious on, there was a county that was over east of us that had some financial struggles, and I think it was the city of Baraboo. They had an ambulance district service. Why didn't they go to a privatized ambulance if this is what you're recommending here for us as one of your options to go third party?
They ultimately wanted to have a district-wide ambulance service that did both fire and EMS. So again, a different model, a totally different, uniquely different situation for what they wanted versus what the options were that we discovered for Richland County.
Supervisor Severson, done? I'm going to let Mr. Cooley go next if you are.
Yeah, so on the funding mechanism of it, so the county has to has to run one of the areas. That's the only way that the funding can go where the county does the tax levy. So my question basically is could we create a district and could the county still fund it?
I think it's possible, Dana, just so I can clarify, the county could contract with every single provider throughout the county and levy the tax outside the levy limit. Portage County is one that does that, correct? That they do a countywide tax levy, all of their services are contracted, and they fund all of those services. So you don't need to have the county run one of them to be countywide.
That is my question. So that's correct. We could create a district, right? And then the county could still levy the tax, and we wouldn't have to have our hands in it other than levying the tax and dispersing, creating contracts with all the districts.
That would be correct.
Okay, thanks.
Further questions from the committee? Any comments from Administrator, Chairman Turk? Good? Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to item number 9, which becomes item number 8. Discussion and possible action on our next steps for the provision of ambulance services.
So the study's been completed, and the recommendation was to do a countywide service, which taxes the entire county outside of the levy limit, and for the county to engage with a third-party provider to provide the EMS services to the area currently served by Richland County Ambulance Service. Before you begin your discussion, there's just a couple of things that I want to share with you, some facts that I want to lay out that I believe you will need to make a decision. In the end, I'm going to do whatever I'm directed to do. So whatever is decided by the board, I will honor that recommendation and that directive. First thing is, over the past 3 years, 2023, 24, and 25, the service expenses have exceeded their revenues by an average of $114,000 each year. The final audit has not been completed for 2025, and there is a possibility there will be some adjustments made that will increase the deficit. These 3 negative years have deleted the cash balance of the ambulance service, and the service currently has very little equity. If this trend continues, the county will have to start using their general fund to cover the loss. To date, in 2026, our expenses exceeded our revenues by over $86,000. So that's in the 3 months of this year. This is not about $6,000. While finalizing the budget for 2026, the county board made the decision to have the county take $6,000 from the parks budget to cover the cost of ambulance service to county facilities. Additionally, the total budget for the ambulance service continues to increase each year and has not gone down. So we have not cut their budget, we have increased their budget every year. Second, the county has an obligation to provide public safety related to the sheriff's office, roads, adult and child protective services, and crisis response. We have a statutory obligation to provide these services. The county does not have a statutory obligation to provide ambulance service. For at least the past 4 years, and from 3 different county administrators, the board has been informed that changes must be made as the county cannot continue to function as it has been. If changes are not made for 2027, we may be in a position where we are not meeting our statutory obligations to provide our required duties. Across the state, counties and the state are grappling with these same decisions that we are and are having to choose which services are kept and which ones go. In 2026, to balance our budget, $250,000 was taken from the general fund. This is not good fiscal practice moving forward. Over the past few years, we have balanced the budget with ARPA and our general funds. We can no longer do that and must start to make some hard decisions. In 2026, the Highway Department did not budget for any road projects as there was no room in the budget to allow for it. We cannot continue this practice. The county also has many projects that we need to accomplish in the coming years. Changes to the courtroom to improve safety for the staff and residents who come to the courthouse, highway projects with a sunset date for the cost share from DOT, a new jail, preventative maintenance across county property, a new generator in the courthouse, and the list continues as noted in the recent County Facilities Planning Committee meetings. If we continue to provide the service as the municipalities are requesting and the community, we will need to buy 2 new ambulances over the next 5 years. The cost of a new ambulance, fully outfitted, could be up to $500,000. This money could fund a highway project or the upgrades to the courtroom to ensure that the community and our staff are as safe as they possibly can be. There are municipalities who are not served by Richland Ambulance Service who have reached out to me and have voiced their concerns. They have shared that some of them are able to meet the needs of their community members and question if all taxpayers should have to take care of all the other municipalities who are unable to meet the needs of those in their community. The last thing is, in recent years, the county has made a commitment to pay their staff fairly. That takes additional funds that we need to make sure we have available. It is important to note that I am looking at this from a county financial perspective. I know that we have a great ambulance service with great staff, and if we could continue as we are, I would love to be able to do that. I just do not see how we as a county have the ability to prioritize this over our mandatory services.
Comments, questions, dialogue?
I'll start with the third-party ambulance service. We're still going to levy the taxes. You're not going to pay for it any other way.
The municipalities always have the option to continue to find a way to fund it. It doesn't have to fall on the county.
How much will a third party cost? Do you have a contract have you heard from Gunderson? Do you have a contract? Do we even know? Here's the problem that I see. We know what our private contract is, should be about, the $1 million a year.
Our budget this year is 1.3.
Okay. We don't know, unless somebody's not telling us, we don't know how much a third party's going to cost.
That's what the RFP would do, if we chose to go there.
But I don't know how, I really don't know how we can make a decision until we find out what those numbers are. It's like you're shopping for a house and you found 2 homes that you really like to live there. And home A has got different things in it and home B, but you could live with either one, but you know what the price is for A, but you have no idea what the price is for B. I don't know how we can make a decision until we get hard facts back to see how much it's going to cost.
Mr. Coolidge.
The problem I have with the county, the tax, right? So we've got everybody here that's close to the service we have right now, but we don't have any of the other services. I mean, other Darren's here. But what the tax, okay, Jeff's here. There's some online. But we've never brought them really into the conversation of what this means, right? So if you're gonna pay, we're gonna put all taxes on all these people, but we've never brought in the outliers and say, hey, you know, you can't, I don't feel comfortable going and taxing the people in Buena Vista or in Viola to pay for our service, and we don't necessarily have to give them any of that money. You know, so there's a lot more that needs to be discussed here. I think this is great that we've got something in front of us, But we're not anywhere near making, at least I'm not, anywhere near making a decision on countywide, private. I mean, we gotta get everybody together, and that includes all the outlying communities. I mean, Muscadade's not here. I pay them a considerable amount of money in Orion, and there's no representation for them, right? So what does that mean? Or does that mean that because our township has another service, I'm gonna pay double the tax? I don't quite understand, you know, that's not gonna fly. I can't. I'm not saying I'm not for this approach, but we need to understand what the approach is. It's too premature. We've got this study, we just got this. We need to digest this and find out what works best. And I'm not trying to prolong it any more than we have to, but we're way too early in the game here to say, we're gonna do this. I'm just not comfortable with that at this time.
Supervisor Carroll.
Has this report been sent to the other districts that cover part of the county? And if not, will it be?
I could send it to them, yeah.
It seems pretty
It's in the
logical.
packet, so I mean, they all have the ability to see it.
And then there was, I guess there's been some meetings to the side where people have been trying to work things out, and I just got the letter from them today. There's a lot of information there that we haven't had a chance to digest, so I agree with Mark. We're not going to make a decision tonight, but we need to continue to talk, like say, talk to the people that are stakeholders, all of them.
Mr. Manning.
This third party is going to come into the business, and they're going to want to make money. We've got a good service here already, and then we've got to fund it one way or the other. I just can't see how a third party is going to be cheaper than our own people right here. Really only comment I got on it. We definitely got to see them numbers before we go. I agree.
Go ahead, Dave.
Years ago, we were facing a decision of what to do with Pine Valley. It was in bad condition, and we as a county board decided at that time that it was our priority to provide that service, which was not mandated, not required. And we borrowed over $20 million and built a brand new facility, and it's been open and running for 10 years now and serving the citizens of Richland County, and everybody in the county is still paying for that every year because we're paying down the debt service. To me, this is the same kind of question. Is it our value to say that it's important to us, even though it's not required, to provide a county ambulance service? And if it is, then we've got to figure out the funding, because the current funding isn't working and it's not going to. And if we're going to tax every property in Richland County to support this service, then we've got to figure out the fair way to distribute that across the rest of the county, so the townships that are paying Muscadet or paying somebody else are seeing some benefit from the county-wide levy that the county is imposing to support ambulance service. I totally agree. I don't think we're ready to answer that question tonight, but that's what we got to sit down and figure out.
Question on this levy limit exclusion, where we're allowed to go over that to cover. Does it also allow us to then also do capital investment for ambulances? Is that also part of what can be used?
And we do that through a short-term borrowing.
Well, I'm talking about this permission to go over the levy limit.
If we did it with short-term borrowing, the levy limit's not an issue. Because we do short-term borrowing now about, last year was a little over $1 million. We're doing various projects with that. You know, you can borrow for county highway trucks, you can borrow for fixing a roof, you can borrow for those capital type things. An ambulance would be a capital expenditure.
But we can't borrow for operation.
Correct.
Not for the county.
Not for the county.
Not in this case. This is for operation.
Yes, this is for operation, this levy limit. And that would actually, that's where your shortfall in your general fund would come, where you wouldn't be using that, is through your levy. So you wouldn't be using what we have in our general fund now. We would actually be levying for the operation of the ambulance.
that's what we decide to do.
Correct, that's what I'm saying. I think there was a misconstrued here when there was, somebody was talking.
Well,
Wasn't actually represented.
what Steve's saying though is, can we, so this levy, say it's $1 million, I'm just gonna say $1 million, and we need a new ambulance, which is another 500. Can we levy for $1.5 million, and that all is for providing emergency services? That's the question.
Yeah, in other words, don't use the short-term borrowing for it.
Yeah, exactly.
This levy exemption.
It's this levy exemption, and can that do to support the whole ambulance service, whether it's COTS, it's whatever the case may be? So that's the question.
Yes, yes. But I think what we need to remember too is, so if we levy 1.5 outside the limit for ambulance service, and we levy $1 million for our capital projects like we did this year, and then if we do another $1 million for projects that we have coming for building safety, then it's starting to make an impact, even more impact on people's taxes.
Taxes are gonna go up. I don't know how any other way to say it.
And I brought this up in a meeting before. We still got the school district, the Ithaca School District, the city of Richland Center, all could levy a tax and cause those people to have their taxes go up too.
But give us explanations.
I think we need to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars and trying to have the least impact on taxpayers and on their bottom line as we can.
Agreed.
Mr. Frank.
Thank you. So I want to thank you, Trish, for bringing this up. This is a discussion point, as it clearly says, what are the next steps? I don't see a decision was going to be made here. This is the next steps, and that's very clearly put out here. That's why we're having it. So I'm thankful people came and talked, but I want everybody to realize this is the thought process. We're making decisions to see where and what's going on. I don't know anybody was going to make a final decision today once we got this report. So
it says vote on the cover sheet.
It does. It was to go into.
We could vote the next steps. That doesn't mean this is the end. This is the next steps. What are we doing? What's the vision? That's what we're trying to do. So what I'm hearing from the group is we have more questions that we want answered. And I think it's only fair that we clarify what some of those are maybe, so we have that direction. One of the things I've heard is, what are the costs? What are the costs of a contracted service coming in versus what the costs are now for the service? I think that's a piece of information that we want. I think the question I have is, what if we do a levy of 1.5, is that levy including the other agencies that also need an ambulance? I don't know what that dollar amount is going to be. I think we need to see what is that dollar amount going to be. I would like to see some RFP examples of RFPs that have gone out to other counties or other municipalities and how that's done to get a vision of what that looks like. What does that RFP say? I don't know. I'd like to see that. I think that's a good piece of information. I'd also like to see how other counties, if they are doing this, are doing that cost sharing with the other edge services, I'll call them. I'm not saying that's any less service. I'm saying they're the edge services around the counties and around the peripherals. How are they managing that cost sharing piece of it? So I guess those are my questions. If anybody has others, I would encourage you to bring them up so we have a pool of questions to come up with some information.
Equalized value.
Fair?
Right.
Good idea.
Barb, you got a comment?
I just want to make sure that we are including, like, we're saying it takes $1.5 million to run $1 million to run one ambulance. Are we including the income that comes from our billing company in that $1 million? So it's $1 million plus the $500,000 that we're bringing in, or whatever. So
$1 million.
So $500,000 that may be, and I'm using rough numbers because we're using imaginary numbers for a minute. But if we're billing insurances for those calls and getting in $500,000, then the tax levy is really only $500,000, not $1 million.
But we have to remember we have all the other services. So I've started to gather that information of the other municipalities. And thus far, I think I'm almost to 100,000 of what the other municipalities are paying. So we can't do that, and that's the thing we've got to be careful about. A countywide tax levy does not just cover the 60%. It has to cover all of them.
So what is the town of Grant versus Portage County court case?
From my understanding of that, there was a municipality, and the example we could use here is CAS could say, no, we don't want you to tax our people. The court case went and the county won, and the county could impose a countywide levy against everyone. That's my understanding of it. If you know different, you can share here.
That's what I wanted to hear from you, because you made it sound like, well, we have to, as soon as we tax, we have to give that money back.
We need to be fair to give it back.
In good faith, we do. Yes, in good faith, we want to give it back.
The case said, so somebody could opt out, but their people are still being taxed.
Yes.
So they could say, I don't want your money, but their people are still being taxed.
So if you have further information, thank you, Bob, for sharing your thoughts. Further information you would like before our next meeting, we will work on getting those questions answered or start the process, get them to myself, Dave, or Trish. Mr. Carroll.
Again, if we're not already, we need to have a dialogue with those edge services. They're part of this.
Wasn't there, I believe there's somebody in the, maybe Dana knows, is there somebody within the state that already is doing same type of thing? If we levied a countywide tax levy and had outside services that would have to be basically repaid, so. Okay, all right, that's good, all right, question answered. All right, so if you have any, yes?
I just have a quick question, just a very basic question. If the EMS, getting rid of EMS in our county is such a big decision, I'm just curious as to why certain places in our county weren't made aware that this was going to be taking place. Like, why certain, like Pine Valley wasn't made aware that potentially Richland Center EMS was potentially going to be non-existent anymore.
I think these have been discussions that have been happening since last summer.
No.
So we have no ability to reach out to every municipality, every business, every entity, every homeowner, and let them know what's going on. This is all being shared through meeting minutes. It's on agendas. We have been very forthright about what the future is going to look like. So this isn't something that the county is attempting to hide. This is something that the county has very clearly put out there. We've had meetings. Every single meeting is recorded. There's minutes for every single one. And they're all public knowledge. All of this is public knowledge.
I was just wondering because Schmidt had no idea about any of this. Pine had no idea about any of this. This little other place had no idea.
I think it's important to know too that the county is not looking to walk away. The county is not looking to say no service is going to be provided. If there were a third-party provider, there would be a requirement that they're housed here. So we're not going to look to have an ambulance that sits in La Crosse or sits in Madison and has an hour and 15-minute response time. There would be an ambulance housed here or however else we want it worded through the RFP. So it's not that there wouldn't be ambulance service provided, it would just potentially be a different provider.
I'm just asking this question because I'm just letting you guys know that a lot of people in our county did not know about it until the Richland Center Ambulance Association started posting about it on Facebook.
Thank you. Mr. Severson, then we got
Could we have there's a person in this room right now that spoke that owns an EMS company, private EMS company, and I was wondering if they could come and talk to us about what privatizing EMS would look like.
Would be happy to.
He's sitting right behind you.
Well, that would, to me, that's something we're going to work on for next meeting.
But I don't, he is a different company other than another company that's out that provides service elsewhere, so. different opinions.
Good, thank you. We'll, next meeting.
I just got a quick question, though. Talking about third party, do they just say, oh, you have this many citizens, so your rate is this, is that basic? Or what does a third party go by?
And we have to see.
I think that's what we're hoping to have more information on at the next meeting. Good. All right, let's move on to item number 9, which is discussion and possible action, provision of ambulance service outside allowable tax levy limit.
So we have talked about that on and off throughout the meeting. I again added the memo. Are there other questions, comments, concerns, information you want me to bring forth?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was thinking and saying yes. When does this start? Would this be do we have to do it at the change of the year, like the regular tax increases, so it would be January of the next rotation, whenever that hits?
That's correct.
Okay. And is there any state process we have to go through that we could start now that says, this is what we're thinking of doing, so they know ahead of time as we're in that process, do you know of?
I don't believe so. I believe when Derek, the clerk, does his reports to DOR, it's just information he puts on their form and turns it in, and that's how it is. We have the ability to levy also our dispatch costs internally, or costs that are for computers, software, that kind of stuff also. We could certainly connect with DOR, start to talk with them about it to make sure that our understanding is correct. But we've been talking with Dana, we've been talking with James Small, and I think if we are going to, if the board decides to levy outside the levy limit, we would need to engage with one of them to help us do it.
Okay. I'm just surprised the state would make it that simple.
You know, going on with that, they did make it simple for this reason, because they recognize this, and now there are 14 counties doing this. And a few years back, there was only a couple. So,
Mr. Carroll.
Could we get a link of the statute so we can be looking at that?
It's in the, it's on the
060, the levy limit exemption?
Yeah, it's on the agenda cover.
Very good.
Oh, okay, it's in there? The link is?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
068B, I believe.
Yeah, so I would say that this would be a different practice that the county's ever done, so echoing what Administrator Clement says, I think we would reach out to DOR to have those conversations to make sure the method in which that tax levy is applied is as we're understanding it correctly. So again, we would look into that, because if we're talking about the appropriation of taxes, that's based on equalized value, you know, some of these things are all kind of spread out that way, so we would do our homework to make sure that the process that would be included in the 2027 budget and thus appropriated out as we normally do with taxes is followed with statutory compliance. We obviously have Corporation Council we talk to DOR and any other pertinent party, so we wouldn't go into this without any knowledge. That being said, I personally haven't dug into it too much because I wasn't sure what direction we were going to go, and before we started to really dig too deep, I had other things to occupy time that needed that. So we will do our homework, just to make that clear.
Thank you, Derek. So if I understand it right, we'll actually have more information on that as well at the next meeting. Any other comments on that portion before the next meeting? Get them to us if you come across something, but I would say the sooner we look into it, the better.
Get information, gotta have it.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Just one thing. There was, I think you made mention of a handout, a letter that was received today that you haven't had a time to look at. Look at the letter. It outlines the position of the committee that has spent a great deal of time looking at the various options. It contains a recommendation and a very reasoned plan of action that addresses all of the concerns that have been raised here as far as process and result. So some of the things that have been said here tonight I don't agree with. I think they misrepresent what the group said. But the letter speaks for itself, and read it.
Thanks, Brian. Further comments from the committee? Otherwise, we'll move on to item 10, which is discussion and possible action on the future funding of Simon's Recreation Complex. Item 10.
At our last meeting, we talked about this Simon study had come out. And one of the things, because of the innovation grant that we were potentially pushing, was to see if the school district was interested in taking over Simon's. With that quick turnaround, they said absolutely not. They are not interested in it at this time, maybe even permanently. So I'm bringing this back to you to say there are 5 options that are on the table. To continue the city-county ownership management, single entity ownership, city or county running it on their own, school district governance, private entity, or a nonprofit. I'm coming to you to say, what steps do you want me to take next?
Mr. Turk.
Since the 2 active parties in it right now are the city and the county, it would seem we need to sit down with our partners in the city and talk about, okay, next steps here. It doesn't look like this option's on the table, so what can happen next to figure out, you know, if the city is interested in continuing forward or not. And we, to date, have not heard of any billionaire foundations seeking to come in and take over the place, so what are our realistic options, particularly just for next year at this point, to keep things going?
We've identified some fairly large ticket items that need to be addressed, which we're planning, so those of us on that group as well. But,
Is this a non-mandated function that the county government provides?
Yep, and the study is in your packet. If you haven't read through it before, it's in there under 10A and B, different things. Comments and thoughts from our group. If you're good, I agree with Mr. Turk. We need to sit down with the city and find out, you know, where their direction is. But of course, they've got a new mayor coming in. I don't know if they're going to have council members as well. I don't live in the city, so I don't know. But
There will be some
new council members as well. Mr. Cooey.
Did anybody look in and see if there was a contract binding the city and the county to make? Is that?
We did a title search on it, so there's no restrictions that are on the title, but we, I guess, haven't found and come forward regarding whether there was a restriction on the donation of Richland County's.
Yeah, that was the question at the last meeting. Just because that can drive your decision making in a hurry, which way you're going to go.
Kind of like our tennis courts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if that's the general consensus of this group, we'll direct Trish to get some information. I guess we'll just kind of coast until our next meeting because they're going to have a new mayor and let them know what's on the radar, and they both of us are going to need to know where we're at with budgets, future budgets. All right, thank you. Item 11, discussion and possible action on updating the FMLA policy in your packet. Item 11.
Hello. I was tasked with updating our FMLA policy to make sure that we are in compliance with federal and state laws. So I did go through and update our entire policy. This particular version does not show you all of the updates because there were hundreds. Many of them were grammatical, so there's not any substantive changes to this, other than to pull out some things that we don't offer. We did mention in one spot that paid parental leave was something that you could use. The county doesn't offer paid parental leave, so I pulled in reference to that from the policy. On page 7, this would be a change. I wouldn't say it's substantive, but it would for sure be a change. The county currently defines a 12-month period as a rolling 12-month period, and we measure backwards. So if somebody starts FMLA today, we have to look backwards for 12 months to see how many hours they've used in the last 12 months to figure out how many they have going forward. It's a more difficult process to measure and to track people's FMLA usage that way. I'm suggesting that we change it to measuring going forward. So if somebody's taking FMLA today, they have 12 months to use from today until March 29th of 2027. And then if they have FMLA that continues on March 30th of 2027, they would have 12 months to use counting forward. It's just easier to track.
What about the state of Wisconsin's FMLA that adds into that?
The state of Wisconsin's FMLA, depending on what you're using, if you're using state and federal, they run concurrently. So they doesn't change anything, and the state tends to adhere more closely to federal. There's also fewer weeks of leave with the federal. So like if somebody has a baby and they take FMLA, they have 12 weeks federal and then 6 weeks state, and they run, the first 6 weeks are federal and state at the same time.
Okay. I know that because the state runs on a calendar year versus the federal running at the start of it.
Yes, I believe.
I think it's at the time of injury or whatever
Yes.
they take that,
It's
it's 1 year
12.
from that date.
Right.
So you cannot
And they
do it twice
measure-
in a year.
Correct, and they measure going forward.
I'm pretty sure the state doesn't do that. It goes from January to December.
Right, but if you take leave in December, if not, you're going to have, I don't believe you have, you're not gonna count backwards that time, you're gonna count forwards typically. But if their calendar year ends in December, that doesn't, I guess I'm not quite understanding your question.
It's not a question.
Pardon me, your
The
comment.
point is does it call that out? The reason why I say that is if you exhaust your federal FMLA and you have, let's say you have 2 weeks of state FMLA, and then say that ends up on December 31st, and the state starts January 1, then now you have 2 more weeks of state FMLA. You see where I'm getting? So you got 12 weeks, then it turns into 14 weeks, then it turns into 16 weeks. See what I'm getting at?
Where's COLA come in with that, what he's saying?
The cost of living?
Or not like that, but,
No, all I'm talking about is, okay, so this is the beginning of our policies, and as it continues down, you know, like there could be job bidding restrictions, or there could be loss of position because of X amount of weeks not in the position. See where I'm going at with this? This is just the start of it, but I'm curious if we're addressing that kind of situations also.
I want to say yes, but I don't want to lie to you.
No, that's fine. and the reason why I'm saying this is a worst case situation. Is the rest of our handbook going to match with this FMLA policy? Maybe that's what I'm saying.
COBRA, that's what
That's not what I'm talking.
In terms of, are we going to try to maintain compliance with federal and state laws? Yes.
Okay, I'm fine with that, but I'm talking about our handbook and our rules in our handbook as far as job position, you know, if you're out for X amount of weeks, you lose your position, things like that. That's what I'm saying, does it correspond?
Yes.
Okay, that's all, that's the only concern I have.
And I think as far as like the stacking, where you use 12 weeks of federal and then 2 weeks, we can just say, and I think we put it in here, that you can't stack your benefits.
Right.
But we can reach out to John Anderson and just confirm that how we have it worded is set up
That
correctly.
that it's concurrent.
That was my only question.
Questions anymore on that part? We'll continue through your changes. Do you have more changes, I would assume?
That's the biggest one. The rest,
Okay.
most of them were grammatical. There's a lot of, it was difficult to read, and there were a lot of, there was a reference to a policy, to a benefit we don't provide, and then we were defining things. It was very difficult to read, and things that are written they can be written at a 4th grade level for people for the most number of people to be able to understand it. Most of us can read at a higher level in 4th grade, but not everybody can. So I made it easier to read, and I made it did seem a little accusatory when I read it in the first way, because it kept saying, you have to do this, and it said, you have to do this, and you must do this. So I changed that to the employee as opposed to you, so it was a little more friendly to read as well.
Any further questions in regards to the FMLA changes? Go ahead.
We just want to know from the committee, which way do you prefer, the rolling forward or coming backwards method?
In general, it's rolling forward in general.
Forward, coming forward, okay. So I will pull out we'll change it so it doesn't say it's 12 month as a rolling counting backwards. So on it'll be the blue one that says the county measures a 12-month period forward from the first date an employee takes FML leave, for example, If an employee takes FMLA leave beginning November 6th, the 12-month period measured forward would end November 5th the following year.
So we can put that in, we can update that, get the answer to the other question and bring it back next month.
The other question is?
Can you use, what happens if you use your FMLA, can you then, federal, can you then go use state?
Basically,
Okay.
yeah, the stacking question.
Yeah, stacking.
Just to be correct.
Perfect.
Perfect.
And it may be a situational thing. You know what I mean? I don't know how that works, but I've seen it happen many times, so I just want to make sure that we're aware.
I'm fairly confident the answer to that is no. But again, I don't want to lie someone.
I would look into it, but you're prepared for.
All right, does that sound good to everyone on the committee? All right, moving on. Any other comments? Mr. Kalish, any correspondence?
No, sir.
Future agenda items, we have two already, carryovers from this evening on the ambulance stuff. Anything else, well?
On that ambulance, I'm really interested to make sure that we can create a district with our current ambulance, so that our current ambulance runs itself, but we can fund it with the tax levy. So we would create, just like we would do with Viola and Casanova and everywhere else. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it gets the county's hands out of the operations of it, but we can still be a funding source.
But maybe it's an option that one of the municipalities takes over the lead of it instead of.
And what I'm asking is, what does it take to do that? That would be my question. What does it take to us fund it and us not run it?
And the district is its own entity.
Fair. A district is its own entity. However, when that district comes up 3 years from now and says, we need an extra $2.6 million, just taxi level it, wow, did I slap that? Levy it. How does the county then have the reasonability to say, yes, we should? What do we require as documentation throughout the year to see if that's a reasonable levy that we have to put on our citizens over and over and over again? So having them control of it is great, but we still have to have the county input because we're doing the tax levy and we're responsible to the taxpayers.
Going off what Supervisor Frank says, Mr. Seckler just mentioned it today about 4 or 5 different times when he was diverting an answer, but he says that through contract writing, that's when you get to specify, and that's when you get to do that.
Right. Every year, something has to be figured out to that pattern.
And
well, more than likely, we're going to have to increase it someday.
I agree, but how much and by who and by when and by now we're off topic because this is correspondence.
Future agenda items, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. If you have any other ones, give them to me, Chairman Turk, or our Administrator Tricia Clements. Before our next, when is the next meeting?
April 14th.
Oh, so it's going to be before the board meeting. So we will, this same group will meet April 14th.
I would like to hear from Badgerland EMS for future agenda items.
Next meeting, 5 p.m., correct?
But it doesn't need to be at this next meeting, but at some point when we're discussing what model to provide.
All right, if not, any other more future agenda items? Mr. Manning?
Motion to adjourn, last time.
Promises, promises.
Oh, no, you can come.
No, you come back to 14.
Seconded by,
Still on the clock.
all those in favor of adjourning at 7:03 p.m., signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you all.